Welcome to Recovery TV. If you're struggling with trusting your partner after infidelity, then you don't want to miss this, so stay with us. Thanks for joining us on Recovery TV. We have a really special topic to talk to you about today, but before we begin, we want to encourage you to please subscribe to our channel if you like the videos that we're making, and go ahead and ring that bell so that you can be notified when more videos are posted. But we have a really important topic related to betrayal trauma, so people that have experienced infidelity in their relationships are often asking questions to us like, when will I ever trust again, or will I even ever trust again?
And this is usually a question that's asked to us a little bit after couples have gotten through the crisis event of discovering the secret life or experiencing the betrayal, but they're trying to figure out how to transition from this marriage where the betrayal happened to potentially building a new relationship.
Right. And what couples might not realize, especially the partner that has been wounded by the infidelity, is that they might be exactly where they need to be in terms of trust. So for most couples, infidelity represents the death of a marriage. And so if they want to stay together, then they're going to have to rebuild a new marriage.
That's right. And that rebuilding anew doesn't mean forgetting what happened in the past, but it does mean that you have to knock down or cut out the part that was broken and build something new. And distrust or struggling to trust is just part of that new rebuild, of that new relationship.
Right. So a lot of pain that people are grieving in this is grief.
Grief,
right. And it's complicated because it's also coupled with injury at the same time. And so it's important to recognize that part of what I'm feeling is grief, and I'm leaving behind this world that I've known, that I've trusted, that I've been able to navigate for so long and so many years, and headed into a space where I really don't know what the rules are or how things are going to end up, and my sense of security has really been shaken in that.
That's right. They don't often know who they are after this kind of trauma, and they don't know what their relationship is. So it's this grief of loss of the relationship, but also sometimes the loss of identity.
So this means that your relationship is in transition. You're moving from this old relationship that no longer functions because of the injury it sustained, and into a new space where we're going to build something new together. And so if your relationship is in transition, then that means that the trust, or the lack thereof, in your relationship is also in transition, and we call that transitional distrust.
Right. And the words are very appropriate in that it is usually time sensitive, it is transitional. You have not felt this way before, you will not feel this way in the future, but for right now, as you transition from knocking down the old relationship and creating a new, you're going to have to experience some of those growing pains. And we use the word distrust on purpose. It's not exactly a positive word, but we're just kind of calling it like it is. When someone's deceived you, you don't have trust. It just doesn't exist.
And what we tell our clients often is that you don't get to have trust right now in this part of the process. And so there's going to be a lot of discomfort related to the distrust that you experience and you feel. One reason it's important to understand this as transitional distrust is because you can actually use it to help measure your progress or your forward movement in your healing and recovery. So there are a couple different types of transitional distrust that we want to highlight.
The first we're going to call reactive distrust, and the second one we're calling cautionary distrust.
And an easy way to think about that is the difference in a red light and a yellow light. And so let's start with the first one, the red light, which is reactive distrust.
So this is the trust that often my clients describe as the feelings or the behaviors that are just all too familiar. Been there, done that. It's something that they know, especially the clients that are working with us that are in therapy addressing this, they're not going to stand for it. That it's not okay if they're rebuilding this new relationship. They're not going to experience this kind of distrust.
Right. So one way that I say it is often a strong hell no response. So this type of distrust is couched in certainty. You can hear the certainty in the response, in the reaction of hell no, I'm not going to be a part of this.
Right. This type of distrust is more of the same behavior, more of the same territory. This more of the same behavior really is mirroring the past.
Right, and they know with absolute certainty that they don't want to go back there.
Right.
So let me provide you an example. So often in relationships where people have experienced infidelity, there's usually a lot of secrecy going on. It makes sense because in order to keep that circus going, I need to keep some things secret. So after it's been exposed and the cat's out of the bag, it seems like that we're just being honest and transparent the whole time, but sometimes secrecy creeps back in other forms.
Right.
And so it might come back in the form of keeping spending habits secret or my whereabouts secret. And the person with the secretive behavior is thinking that they're being transparent because they're not being secretive in their relationships, but they're not realizing that they're carrying on secrecy in the new space, and the person who's been betrayed wants no part of that.
Right. So a lot of times clients say things like, they told me partial truths, or they were hiding their phone from me, or they told me they went one place but they went two places, and it's not necessarily to cover up or keep the old behaviors going, but it's too close. It's that, again, that's all too familiar for those couples.
Right. We talked about the point of experiencing transitional distrust is to help measure, right? So if you experience the red light, which is a reactive distrust, remember that's embedded in certainty, that's a red flag to let you know that that's a step backwards. We don't want to go back. There is no going back. We want to move forward. So you need to pay attention to what your body and your brain is trying to tell you, and it's trying to tell you that, hey, we want to move forward, not backwards.
Right. And what we're trying to move into is that second type of distrust, the cautionary distrust, or the yellow light, as we used in the metaphor before. And this is the kind of distrust that is really, as Josh had couched in uncertainty, not certainty.
Right. And so one thing we often say to our clients is that in the new space, uncertainty is the name of the game. That's actually where we all live in reality, is that we live in a world of uncertainty. And so this type of distrust in a lot of ways is scarier.
It may, and often we say to our clients, it may feel the same, because not trusting is a similar emotional experience. It evokes thoughts and cognitions around what's really going on. And just because it feels the same and there's some familiar thoughts doesn't mean it is the same type of distrust. It's more questioning. It's more about trying to discern what's really going on rather than being sure that something sneaky is really happening.
Yeah, so it's confusing because it's behaviors you haven't seen, but if you want to create a marriage that's going to work, a one that you can trust, you're going to have to start with doing things differently. So you got to eliminate the toxins from the old relationship and create new behaviors, new interactions, and you're going to see that in your spouse and partner on both sides, and it's going to be scary because you're not going to know how to make sense of it. And so often the way that transpires is some version of, what the hell, you know, what is this? I don't recognize this. And sometimes that's a much bigger reaction than I'm giving you right now.
Absolutely. And it's still, that big reaction is oftentimes anger and frustrating, and it evokes arguments and conflict. And so a lot of times this can really scare clients, because they'll say, well, I'm trying to build something new, but we're arguing, I'm having this hard time. And that's one of the things that Josh and I were mentioning about it being a measure of progress.
Right.
Perhaps it is bringing things up, but that doesn't mean that things aren't building, that things aren't getting better. It does feel uncomfortable. It does feel different. But different is what we're going for. But
we don't know if it's a good different or a bad different. We just know that it's different because we're in that space of uncertainty. And so when our clients are experiencing that, maybe they are doing some things that they don't really want that to be a part of their new space, and we can help them start to make those adjustments so that they can take that experience with something different and make it productive in their new space, their new relationship.
Right.
So that gives you a small glimpse inside the concept of transitional distrust.
We understand that this concept is hard for most people. It is nuanced perhaps in trying to figure out where you are and what's really going on. And so of course we really want to encourage anybody that's struggling with any kind of betrayal trauma to consult a professional, to find an expert who knows how to help you through the trauma of dealing with betrayal and lies. Transitional distrust is a part of that healing. And this concept is helpful for our clients, but it's helpful for therapists too, because it helps you design a plan where you're helping your clients move forward and create this new relationship.
Right, so make sure you check out the description of this video below, because I'm going to put a link to a therapist directory where you can search for therapists in your area that specifically work with betrayal trauma.
Right. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.